Hi everyone. So today I'm going to be talking about how to conduct a spelling CBM. So spelling CBMs and their purpose. These are basically to assess how well students know and have learned these different spelling rules, and the different tasks that it takes to spell words, um, and basically the number of words that a student can spell correctly. The purpose of conducting these spelling CBMs are to see something in a more of like a precise light, more sensitive, in order to see what level these students are at when the school year starts or whenever you're going to be working on spelling, um, to ensure that they're either like at grade level or what they need in order to get to grade level. Um, and making sure that they're not just memorizing and copying words, like really ensuring that they are learning how to spell them. So reasons that you would administer one of these spelling CBMs would basically to just make sure that these students have a good foundation in spelling already, as this kind of does go in hand with writing and evaluating. If students cannot spell, it's very hard for them to be able to write. So connecting these CBMs just helps us as educators know where we can best assist our students. Again, just like assessing the general learned spelling rules that these students have learned in the past, um, and to assess their literacy skills because spelling, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, goes hand in hand with writing and evaluating, and to see that if there are any students that have difficulties, they can be addressed in a timely manner so that by the time they are out of this grade level, they are able to be a little bit closer or already on grade level when it comes to spelling. So, what different materials are needed for spelling CBMs? Basically, you would need different but equivalent grade level spelling lists. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the presentation. Directions for administering and scoring spelling CBMs. The students would get a piece of lined paper as well as a writing utensil for their responses, a stopwatch or countdown timer, whether that's your phone or a physical timer that displays seconds, a quiet testing environment to work with students, whether that's one-on-one or in groups, and an equal interval graph or graphing program to plot the data that you receive from the spelling CBM responses. So how to administer a spelling CBM? Basically, you would create or purchase a pre-made spelling list. So this would have a bunch of different words with the same number of total levels. Um, this can go anywhere really from 12 to 17 words, depending on what grade. As we see for first and second grade, it's 12 words and 17 words for third grade and above. It's really important that these are at the same grade level that you want your student to be at, or else you will not get an accurate score. First and second grade list should have 55 to 70 correct letter sequences, which are referred to as CLS. And third grade above should have 125 to 155 CLS. So how to administer a spelling CBM? So the procedure is the first time that it is done, there should be 3 equivalent spelling lists used, whether universal screening or progress monitoring. So these are like all words of the same grade level, the same like amount of letters, things like that. This should be done in one testing session to ensure an accurate score, but it can occur over several days if needed. It's better for it to be done in one session just because you get more of an accurate score base. Um, and after you do that, you take the median of the 3 scores and you use it as your first data point on the student graph. Finally, there will be about 20 to 30, but 20 to 30 different but equivalent lists to monitor student success in spelling throughout the year. So this just helps you see how your students have grown, where they need a little bit more help, things like that. And this can be done individually or with the group. And students will have a lined piece of paper and a pencil in order to conduct these or do the spelling CBM. So this is the example from our textbook of what the spelling CBM would look like, and how I would administer it would basically be that I would have my group of students. Um, Typically, I think I would find it better to do it one-on-one, so I would probably actually just have one student. I would explain the rules of how this is going to go. And basically, what I would say is, I'm going to read some words to you. I want you to write the words on the sheet in front of you. Write the first word on the first line, the second word on the second line, and so on. I'll give you 10 seconds. So you have 10 seconds to spell each word. When I say the next word, try to write it, even if you haven't finished the last one. Are there any questions? So from there, I would start the timer and I would say the first word. So the first word is tape. And the student would have about 2 minutes to do this CBM. I would say the word twice and give an example if the word has a variety of spellings or has different meanings. I would say a new word every 10 seconds for first and second grade, or every seconds for third or seven, or every 7 seconds for third grade and up. And once those 2 minutes are over, the CBM would be complete. So as we see, this picture on the left has all the words spelled correctly, and the 17 words that the student is being tested on. Here we see that the student has written the 17 words, spelled how they believe they should be spelled, and it is already scored right here, which we'll talk a little bit more about as we move on. So directions and scoring, I did kind of just explain how I would administer the CBM. So I know a lot of this information is a little bit repetitive from my previous slide, but it is very important to select an appropriate grade level spelling list. It's important that the words are not too easy for your students or too hard for them to spell, because that can give you an inaccurate score on an inaccurate number for their score. So you would just make sure the students are numbering their papers, as well as just like going through these different directions with them, so that they feel like they're being supported, as well as, well, being supported as they get used to doing this. So when it comes to scoring, you would count the total number of correct letter sequences to obtain the correct letter sequence score, the CLL score. CLS score. Excuse me. So then from there, you would count the total number of words spelled correctly to obtain the WSC score. So that would be the words spelled correctly. So there are two different ways that you can actually score this particular CBM. So when you use the CLS to score, you will use the upper caret, as we saw in the example, to identify each correct sequence. You do not have to do anything if there's an incorrect letter in the sequence. Basically, you calculate it by seeing how the CLS of each word is equal to the number of the letters in the word plus 1, except when punctuation is used, then it is the number of letters in the word plus 2. So it is a bit easier to score spelling CBMs when you use words spelled correctly, the WSC method instead. So basically, each word that is spelled correctly or its corresponding number is circled, and the total number of words circled would be the amount of words spelled correctly, the WSC. So those are the two ways that you can score spelling CBMs. So special administration and scoring considerations. So correction procedure, if the student makes an error, he is not corrected. You don't say anything, you just mark it on your own. Skip an item. If a student skips an item and it is counted as incorrect, say, try to spell the word, because it's better for them to at least try, so you can get that scoring done on your paper. The discontinuation rule. There's no discontinuation rule for spelling CBMs. Clear pronunciation of words. It is vital that each word be pronounced clearly and at an audible level. So this is on us as educators to ensure that we are pronouncing these words correctly. And if you know that maybe you have a student that is hard of hearing, that maybe you say it a little bit louder, and you just try to like put emphasis on where the syllables are. Um, it's also helpful to use prompts, especially for younger students, to keep them on the right number every 4 or 5 words. So, for example, you would say number 5 is whatever word is number 5 is. So, how often should a spelling CBM be administered? So, they should be administered as often as this. Basically, when it comes to universal screening, all students should be tested 3 times a year using grade level materials. So, that's at least 3 times a year for all students. But progress monitoring is specifically for students that are at risk. So, students that have already been flagged as not being on grade level when it comes to spelling. So, this progress monitoring would happen about once a week and once a month on grade level materials. So the once a week would be on materials that maybe is a little bit easier for them to spell and understand versus the ones that are on grade level, which would happen on a monthly basis. So how long should it take to administer and score a spelling CBM? So this basically depends on the proficiency of the speller, their grade level, and the experience of the scorer. So for us as educators, when we are first doing this, it may take a little bit longer because it is a learning curve, but with time it becomes a little bit quicker. Basically, the test itself is 2 minutes long, plus the time it takes to get students ready and collect the sheets from them. So overall, the test should only take about 5 minutes. It takes just a little bit longer once you're scoring on your own. So some frequently asked questions that were referenced in the book would be these. I have 6 that I noted that I saw that probably were like most important to go over. So can I give students the list prior to assessment? It is very important that we do not do this because then students have a chance to memorize the list, which is not giving you an accurate score for the spelling CBM that you are administering. So, what happens if a student becomes distracted or fails to participate during the classroom administration? Um, Basically, you would complete the classroom administration and then take the student individually and administer a different list at a later time. Make sure that you are not giving them the same list as they've already heard the words. And depending on what student it is or what type of student they are, they could just have memorized the words that were on the list previously. So not everyone in my class is on the same instructional level. Should I still give them all the same spelling list? So yes, all students should be screened on their grade level, but they should be progress monitored on their instructional level, especially if they're receiving instruction on that level. So the best way to do this is to give both the grade level and the instructional level spelling list each week so you have an indication on how the students are doing given the instruction that they are receiving and how well it is transferring how well they are transferring to spelling more difficult words that are on grade level. The next 3. Should I teach students the spelling rules if they miss on the spelling rules they miss on the spelling list? Yes. So whenever our students are missing previously taught rules, it is beneficial to reteach the material. This may be an indication that students did not fully understand the concept. For us teachers, though, we should continue to scope and sequence as presented in the curriculum. So what if I cannot tell what a student has wrote? In the case of doubt, just do not give the student the credit, and be sure to explain why that they did not get the credit for that word. And if you cannot read their handwriting, it's probably best to redo it and have them write in their neatest handwriting. And what should I do with the scored spelling sheets? So this information can be kept in a portfolio along with the graph data to demonstrate progress throughout the year. This is also something you can share with parents if they have questions on how their students are doing. So my references was I just basically used the textbook to complete my presentation, and that's where I got all of my information. So thank you so much for sticking through and watching.